should unmute myself and just get these there. Sorry, trying to make it all pretty. Okay. Well, hello everyone, and thank you again for being part of another Seed Drink seminar. Before we start, we'll let you know that this meeting is being recorded, and you can access the recording via the link for those of you who are on Zoom, like via the chat or like the Seed Drink website. We'd first like to begin by opening the space by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we are on, which is the land of the Wunurong and the Wunurong people of the Calling Nation. And we acknowledge that the lands, the people, and the lands you're all dialing in from. I pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as elders and any First Nations who may be present here today. And I acknowledge and pay respect to the deep embedded knowledge within the Aboriginal communities and their continued relationship with land, as well as their ownership of country. I'd like to acknowledge that these are stolen lands and that sovereignty has never been ceded. And I would also like to honor the space of Mindani Baluk, where we're meeting on today. Today we have a seminar titled Trajectories of Young Mapuche People from Rural Communities in the Araucanía region in Chile. And Gabriela is here today with us, who is a PhD student from the Universidad de la Frontera in Chile. And she will be sharing her fascinating project with us today. She started her investigative process was developed under the approach of biographical narratives and consisted of the co-construction of biographies with young Mapuche people who in their studies trajectories have moved from the rural communities to urban centers to pursue secondary and university studies. The research is positioned from the Latin American intercultural ethics, which cautions the implications of the research in process and produces spaces for reflection and self-recognition. On that note, I'll pass it on to you, Fabi.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me in this presentation of a part of my doctoral thesis project. It's titled Dynamics of Foundation of Ethnic Cultural Identity in the Biographical Trajectories of Young People from Rural Mapuche Communities Studying Higher Education in the City of Temuco, Araucanía, Chile. In the context of my research, I position myself as a mestizo woman interested in understanding and intervening in the oppressive social dynamics that structure unequal societies in Chile, Latin America, and the world. I feel committed to the well-being of the people and communities with whom I work, and to contributing to the recognition, development, and right of self-determination of Mapuche people. At first, I will present a brief contextualization and problematization, and then I will present the theoretical, methodological, and ethical approach used in the production of the data and some advance in the analysis. Sorry, I have a problem with it. Thank you. The Araucanía region is located in the ancestral territory of the Mapuche people in southern Chile. In Chile, the indigenous population represents 12.8%. Mapuche population represents 8.5%. The Mapuche population is concentrated in a higher percentage in the Araucanía region, 34.3%. The relation between the Mapuche people and the Chilean national state have been historically unstable and in periods of conflict. The military campaign of 1861-1883, called Pacification of Araucanía, meant the death and systematic expropriation of their land, their identity, and their right to be independent throughout the south of the country. Following the military campaigns, Mapuche people were removed to reservations, losing the majority of their ancestral land. During the first half of the 20th century, these reservations were continually subject to division and expropriation by powerful landowners in the region. The scarcity of land was one of the reason for the mass rural-urban migration that started in the 1930s. Rural-urban migration and mobilities are common to many of the young people from indigenous people who migrate to urban centers in Chile. Processes in which these new generations are progressively integrated into urban lifestyles. Young people from indigenous people confront, negotiate, and internalize values, norms, customs, meanings, and regionalities of differentiated sociocultural contexts, of rural territories and communities, and from the urban environment. We found 7 dimensions that are part of the processes of identity configurations. Migration mobilities as a process that instigates self-recognition, power dynamics, and discrimination at the base of identification process. Presence of socio-epistemological tensions between an indigenous philosophy and another outside. Identity management according to the interaction context. Dilemmatic personal experience when assuming the indigenous, non-indigenous identity. Identity as a mechanism of resistance and autonomy, and mechanisms for the recreation of ethnic cultural identities, diaspora. Methodnographic synthesis shows trajectory of identity configuration of indigenous youth as the 4K stone that crowns the fall of process of ethnogenesis and social change. A keystone, Paul's has a special and unique shape that differentiates it from all others. Not only does it try to find its place in the construction course, but even the builders cannot understand what their destiny is. At this interpretative level, the indigenous identity of young people is in a process of permanent search, in a state of tension between the desire to find a place to stabilize and the need for its transformation in the course of collective cultural development. These are the base questions of this research project. How are the process of ethnic cultural identity formation experienced by young people from rural Mapuche communities? What sociocultural elements intervene in this process of ethnic cultural identity formation? What relationship exists between the biographical process of ethnic cultural identity formation with collective processes of continuity and cultural and identity change? General objective, understand the dynamics of ethnocultural identity formation in the biographies of young Mapuche people from rural communities who move to urban context to pursue higher education. Theoretical approach. At first, we problematized the notion of identity in the social science. The ethnic cultural identity construct neglects the process, the whole of its formation and refiguration over time. It makes invisible the component of potentiality that is constitutive of being. There will be elements that are not considered in these notions, considering them typical of a subjective individual level. The notion of personal and ethnic cultural identity has been defined by the social science and anthropological tradition as configuration and definition subject to a given time and space and in constant transformation, as cleavage of differentiation, and that characterize individual and collective subjects based on criteria of belonging, differentiation, and self-ascription to specific groups. It's considered here that these identity constructs make invisible the experiential, processual, and formative aspects that are at the base of the appropriation disaffection of meanings and cultural identity sense, which is why they will present limitations to comprehensively account for the complexity of the process of identity formation, a phenomenon in which it's interesting to delve deeper. Here, I embrace the notion of self from Ricoeur's hermeneutic phenomenology. This author proposed a dialectic between hidden identity and ipse identity. Ipse identity, way of being and maintain the self, the way that human life follows itself, and that allows memory as well, the project, in such a way that it connects alive. In ipse identity, there will be a promise of continuity, a word pledged to oneself and or others. That is at the basis of the formation of personal identity or self. The self, oneself, as ipse, is composed of two dimensions that provide a comprehensive and analytical framework of the self. Narrative identity addresses the memory, the narrative of the past. Initiative and promise, works, action, keeping promises with oneself and others. We propose ethnic cultural identity as a particular dynamics of self-formation, results from the enunciation of an emergent praxis, initiative, promise that recognize meanings, that protect and maintain promises made with oneself and with others, formed in a particular surrounding world that is nourished by the recognition of initiatives and promises anchored in a tradition. In the transit and navigation between worlds of life, as different contexts of meaning, new possibilities and requests for promises involve the subjects, which can be incongruent, contravene, and even violate the promises contracted in the primary context of origin. Therefore, these, in their different levels of fit and softening of flexibility, are reformulated in the process. Some are maintained, others are broken, negotiated, or compromised. And also, as a strategic form, they are hidden, remain in latency, and they can eventually emerge and converge with other biographical plots to create group and collective resonance. And or they are influenced by social movements that bring together diverse and marginalized voices and stories, converging in different ways. Rivera Cusicanti, reflecting on the oral history of Andean and indigenous people, refers to indigenous social movements, conflicts, social outbreaks, as culminating points of a process of underground ideological accumulation, which cyclically come to the surface to express continuity and autonomy of indigenous society. Here we note that the composition of personal identity is, in its ethnical cultural specificity, seems to adopt a similar dynamic throughout the life. At times it appears maintained by latent promise, while others with different levels and forms of manifestations, evidence, and self-evidence. Methodological approach. The methodology considered biographical narrative approach, reflexive ethnography, and participant observation, open interviews, principle of openness and communication, visual research methods, photoillustration interview, field interview in significant places for them. This image shows the family trees that the young people created during the process. They investigated with their families, opening conversation about their origin and spaces for the memory. These are more images from their childhood families. With this photo support, we were able to go deeper into their memories. Positioning an ethical approach, intercultural ethics, and process and apply ethics in biographical research. Research as a process that makes visible realities, voice, narratives of people belonging to non-hegemonic segment of society. Concept of activity. Nahuel Pan alludes to the complex relationship that colonized people established with their collective and individual memories, and to the centrality that practice of interrogation and dialogue with the past have in the process of decolonization. Advancing data analysis, 9 biographies of young Mapuche. In this table, I show the participants and the number of meetings held with each of them. In contrast, includes interviews on the go interviews, visits to their communities, families, and students, residents. In the analysis of the data, different axes of analysis emerge, like 7 axes. Here I will show you 2. I present synthesis of 2 axes now. Transgenerationally of historical colonial trauma and trajectories of cultural agency resilience. Okay. We can see here the use of history, written a loss of family and community memory, and the substance lack of knowledge of the history of their parents and of previous generations. Evaluation of the Mapuche in cultural identity, similarities, family activity, more political background toward cultural elements, problematic alcohol conception, from some of their parents or from both parents in the extended family and community, domestic and community violence, different expressions. Experience of racism and discrimination of young people in educational institutions, territorial dispossession and poverty, migration and socio-spatial mobility, diaspora, and hiding of the rural community, memory loss, weakening of a family and community ties, poor ties with the community, isolation from the family, loss of ties with the mother extended family. It's good. I don't know. Yeah, here. And this is the resilience dynamics in the trajectories, cultural agency resilience. Okay. Collective one, more personal one. Yeah, are linked. Collective and generational dynamics, transgenerational family participation in movements of cultural and political demand, participation and experience of Mapuche spirituality, inspirational, significant family community figure. Formal education has a driver of personal and family community development. Family learning based on the experience of siblings and family members. Family learning about identity management, and family support and collective well-being, bonds of support. And the dynamics were created in the personal experience of vivencias, embodiment experience. Okay. Management of wisdom, kimun, is a category, Mapuche language category. Knowledge and Mapuche reflectivity in the school context, retrogenerationality or reverse transfer of appraisement of culture, meeting with significant peers, collective recognition, support, self-recognition, professional practice, retribution, and family and community reciprocity. Okay. That's my presentation. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabby.
Yes, to finish this presentation, I want to share with you a poetic reflection that arose when I arrived here in Australia, Melbourne, regarding my own identity. And that is part of the exercise of the self-discovery, a repositioning that the investigative process produces in all of us. It's called two in between. Two in between. Too white to be Indian, too Indian to be white, too thin to be sensual pretty lady, too attractive to be invisible, too woman to be logically smart, too logically smart to be woman, too rich to be poor and starved, too hungry to be immobile, too white to be accepted, too Indian to be accepted, too thin to be accepted, too attractive to be accepted, too rich to be accepted, too poor to be accepted, too white to be rejected, too Indian to be rejected, too thin to be rejected, too attractive to be rejected, too rich to be rejected, too poor to be rejected. Only in your eyes I can draw on me who you are. In my camouflage, the arrows against them hurt me as much as if they were against me.
Thank you. I think this is the time if you have any questions for Gabby, comments, reflections that you might want to share. Same as everyone in Zoom, if you want to share any questions.
I'll start there.
Yes.
That's not true. That was that jumping. Thank you so much. Thank you. That there was so many things that you were talking about that are the same for our Mob who live in the west of Melbourne, about how they try to connect and understand their family spaces and how they understand their generation, and the issues of dispersal and dispossession and moving into urban spaces. I think there's so much that correlates the work that we're doing here with just Aboriginal people in the west of Melbourne. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of Miriam for sharing your journey with us, with your group of people from home, and yeah, their struggles and their ways of being in the world. And yeah, we need to keep our connections together in some way. So thank you.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of learning and I don't know, no connection, more authentic connection, I think. After we like my father, like a kid.
If this was on a slide, I apologise, but I'm interested to know that over time, more Mapuche people accessing higher education. Are the rates of people accessing higher education increasing?
Yes. They are increasing they access to education because there are laws that support them, benefit of them.
Yeah.
More, but it's just since 90. Before not, yeah.
Okay.
It's recently post-dictadura with a return of democracy in the 93 ley indigenous law in Chile. It was created in 1993. More Mapuche young people could come to the higher university, but still is less percentage with more non-Mapuche in comparison of non-Mapuche.
Yeah.
young people.
Thanks for your
Yeah.
presentation.
Mhm. Any questions? Never. Maybe we'll see.
I could say, yeah, congrats on doing this presentation and the work. I can only imagine how much a big effort that is. And also, I was surprisingly emotional, like reading some of those with the, the access slide. Yeah, I think that's just like from the diaspora, I've been from the diaspora, even though my ancestry is not from the south, it's from the north. And so, yeah, I think it was just a mirror into home that I've not having lived experience of. So, I mean, I understand some of those things, but certainly, yeah, in a way that affects everyday life. I don't have that experience. So yeah, it's really interesting to kind of feel all those feelings all at once. Questions? Hello. Thank you.
The last thing that I think for the bond with the young people, I invest a lot of time. That in the bond, yeah, a lot of time. Yeah, and I have to only dedicate it to them in long months, in several months. Yeah, because I again with by WhatsApp in 15 days with each arm. I have the process with two at time, with two, 3 months, 4 months, and with some of one of them, with 2 years, along 2 years, then transfer, yeah. And you, that is nice. I think that is the principle. How can I be there with them and be a contribution in the conversation? Yeah? Not only, oh, my interest, no. A moment, good moment for them. What can I extend to them? Yeah, that is important.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you for what Rachel was saying. There's so much that we have in common. And I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I've claimed you as a friend. Invited you to my house a few times, and tonight you're coming to a talk. I'm sorry, to the supermarket one day, so it was like, yeah, we're really friends now.
Yeah,
Yes.
You're local.
Yes, but there was so much in it that I felt in the work that we do is so similar. And KJ and I and my daughter Rosie in 2010, 11, we went to Cusco for the World Indigenous Peoples Conference on Education, and we met with Mapuche people and learned as much as we could in that short time, and it was really heartening, like it was like heart connections that we're having, feeling the similarities. But I love seeing how you've articulated that, like the experiences, and I don't think I've seen that, even though we feel this in community a lot about the impact of being ashamed of Indigenous community, disconnected from it. That one of your slides where you've got the 1% access and transgenerationality of historical colonial trauma is really important, and it's helping me think about some things and community that we're working with, because it's not often documented like that in our community. We'll talk a lot about it, but to see that example of say in the family where some, like the assimilation of family attitudes and mockery and sarcasm toward a cultural element, like we see that happen and we feel it, and we see the pain that our community members go through, and that when you have to fight, and it's happened to me, when you have to fight your own family member to be who you are, it is so intimate and also very political at the same time, and it's a very like disassociative experience as an Aboriginal person, as an Indigenous person. to try to fight for who you are. And sometimes it's by someone so intimate to you, that you feel like you're going crazy.
Your same family,
Yes.
yeah.
And like I have a settler migrant father who came from Italy, and he would do that to me when I was a little girl. And I would be isolated away from my Indigenous mother and family who were raising me and providing my entire life. And I'll be sent away to holidays to visit him off country, and I would have to fight my own father as a settler who believes, as a settler, that why can't your people just, do what my people do? If you just worked hard, you should get yourself out of the gutter. Like, that's how he would speak to me. So, from a little age, you have to internalize that, you try to understand it, you try to fight, and then you go home to your community where you're loved and accepted and you're grown as an Indigenous person, and then you come out of it again. And then in your poem at the end where you're not, dark enough, or thin enough, or fat enough, or curvy enough, or strong enough, or whatever enough, the whole journey is about becoming more of yourself. And it's so personal, and it's also so political and so collective. But ultimately, we want our children and young people to become more of themselves, and grow that strength. So yeah, I can't wait to see what you do with this, and it's really important and it's informative to us. And really glad that you're here as well.
That is the purpose of the last purpose of the research, I think, yeah. To apply it.
Yeah. Yes. How do you share it?
Share.
Yeah.
Use for the well-being of people.
Yeah. And Indigenous young people here and there, to learn that we're all going through the same struggle is very empowering, because whiteness will tell us that, it survives on isolating us and breaking us down. And the more we realise that it's a shared struggle, the more powerful we can be together. So it's very important that Indigenous people acknowledge that, even if the experiences are slightly different in the context.
To share experience among different Indigenous First Nations.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, what is very important. It's really important, yeah. It isn't just decolonising, even if that's possible, it's rematriating, it's re-indigenising. And sometimes we have to focus on that and not trying to decolonise. Yeah. It's actually being more of who we are, not less than, Yeah. Because that would have us believe that we're not enough.
How we can support that work? Because me, I'm a people, like not Mapuche. I have ancestors, but how can we support this work? That is the question. I think we have generate more, in different spaces. Facilitating, talking.
And to keep the connection. But if you're talking to us about what you're doing, we learn from you and we put it in our community, and what we learn from in our community we share with you, and it goes on and on between, as you just saying, between Canada, Chile, Australia, Western World, all of those communities.
To recognition of the experience of the resilience. That is very important for you. How they provide, they strengthen that kind of
And also how, I think Lorraine is looking at how you support those Indigenous students once they're inside the institution, and what does their well-being mean for them to be engaged in that process while they're going through all this other thing about who they are or where they are. Those things are important as well.
We have two comments. Camilla said it was great to see and hear your work, Abby. Look forward to having a conversation about it and would love to be helped develop. And Nicole said that thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you.
And your English